Hey guys, so today I'm going to talk to you about time. I'm going to talk to you about time in programming and why you should never ever create a countdown timer. Let's get into it. So, for those of you who don't know this, time is arguably the worst thing to work with in programming. And let me tell you why. You see, when you first think about time and using time as a part of your application, you have timestamps and you have all these, it's very common to have something that is connected to time of some sort. The issue is that, especially unless you run your system for an audience that is in a single country, as soon as you start thinking about international type of things and time zones, things get a lot more complicated very, very quickly. Especially if you want the times that you show to your users to be contextual. So I'm going to hopefully sell you on this story, but on this idea that I'm trying to pitch to you basically with a story or two. But right now, if you take anything away from this, it should be that whenever you work with time or anything of that nature, you need unit tests. Always write unit tests for anything, like if you are scheduling things or if you're going to send things out as on certain dates, anything like that. Make sure that you're testing, especially if it's international. If you have different time zones and all that stuff, the complexity of these types of problems are immense. I would even argue and say that the two most complicated things that you can possibly do in general, like everyday programming, is internationalization, like localization and supporting different languages, and time, like basically having the idea of contextual time on your application. Now I'm going to tell you a story about this. So we were at my previous company, we were talking about having a countdown timer. And basically the idea was that when a sale of tickets basically was about to be tied up, and we basically provide a countdown timer for the users so that the users can actually sit and see how many minutes or how many seconds there are until the tickets are released. And originally it seemed like this, it's a pretty straightforward idea, right? You just want to show the users some time, right? And basically have it be tied to real time and a real-time type of thing, so that all the users know when it's time to, when they can actually get their tickets. And so as we progressed through, we were talking about this feature, one of my colleagues mentioned something that I thought was very interesting, and I think it illustrates this very well. What if we have people from different countries connecting to the client and asking for, basically when they're seeing this timer, right? What time do we show them? Do we show them the time when the tickets are released in their time zone or in the time zone of the event? Because the thing is that you may be in one country and the event that you're buying tickets for may be in another country. Which time do you show? Or where, the time, where it's actually happening? You can do it, of course, by showing the time zone, and have the user calculate that as well, for if you wanted to, depending on what type of user experience you want. Next question is such as, all right, so if you have seconds included in the countdown timer, are you sure that the release, because trust me, what people are going to do is that they are going to sit there and refresh that page over and 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 over. So the load to your system is going to increase by quite a lot, because people are basically just going to sit there like crazy, especially in the last few seconds before the release actually happens. Can your system support something like that? And then you have questions such as, all right, you have this timer. Are you absolutely sure that the system that is releasing the tickets is going to release at that exact moment? How do you synchronize the time between these systems? Because the system that is making the tickets available may not actually be on the same time zone as the system that is showing, the systems that are showing is showing this timer to the user, right? So you need to synchronize those times, which means that you now have to create a connection between these two systems and basically make sure that they are communicating and making sure that they are synchronized, overall. And all of this complexity, and because this was estimated to this very straightforward, very simple little tiny problem. In essence, I was actually asked by my product manager, like, how much work is it for you to do this? And I said, it depends on how elaborate you want to do it. It depends. If I do a very naive, simple implementation, then it's as easy as creating a JavaScript implementation on the server, on the client, which basically just counts down a date. That's fairly straightforward. But I'm guessing that that's not going to be good enough for you. And as you see, what I was saying earlier, all these questions came from our stakeholders, like how is that going to work and so forth. And the problem just kept on becoming more and more complicated. So this thing that seems fairly straightforward and fairly easy became very complicated very, very quickly. It's the same thing with localization. Same thing with languages, where people will say, like, I'm actually working with that, I'm actually part of the committee, or whatever you want to call the work group, who's going to solve this problem for my company right now, is talking about introducing localization. And as I expected, a lot of the people who haven't been working with localization before, they kind of just said, yeah, but it's not a problem, right? All you really have to do is to, change out all of the hard-coded text to variables, and then send, the translated text to the client, right? And I said, oh, you naive little person, you. Let's talk about this. Let's just walk through it. So the first thing that happens is that it is true. You can create a JSON file that holds all of your translations. And then the question becomes, all right, do you translate on Word, or do you translate on each text piece on the page? And they ask, what do you mean? Well, of course you're going to translate on Word. I mean, why would you have a unique identifier or variable for every single piece of text on the page? And I said, it's very easy, because if you have the word get, for example, or put, or the, or whatever, depending on the language and the context that you're showing to the user, the translation may be completely wrong. Because some languages use different ways of expressing the same thing in different circumstances. That's one thing. And another thing that is nice to consider is that what format are you going to show the time in? What format are you going to use for currency? Which means that all live, like everything that is in terms of money calculations, all of that has to be accounted for in the localized environment. How will you solve things such as, for example, calendars, where some countries have start on a Monday and some countries start on a Sunday? How are you going to solve that? Then you have questions, which is one of my favorite. This is why I was saying that they are fairly naive about this. This is probably this is where I actually got from, oh, Fredrik is just being a little bit annoying with this, to actually getting them to listen to me. When I said, and how are you going to consider release cycles? And my colleagues said, well, we're just going to release stuff, right? How? What do you mean how? Well, I'm assuming that we don't have somebody who speaks fluent German, Danish, Swedish, Norwegian, Finnish, basically every other country in every other language in the world. Which means that every time we want to ship new features, and this is a startup, which means that speed is everything to this company, like releasing quickly. How are we going to get our translations if we release almost every day? And everybody went, ooh, yeah, how is that going to work? We put a pin in that, just ignoring it for now. We don't really think about it. Let's see how that works out. Sorry, I've had this conversation so many times, and I've kept telling people that this is the sort of problem that seems at first, and you know this because I've been saying this in so many videos, one of my golden rules is that you will underestimate the problem every single time. It's like a New Year's Eve resolution. Every single time I sit down in a grooming meeting or a planning meeting or a roadmap meeting, because it's like everybody forgets that, the last 5 times we planned something, we got it completely wrong. And now, but now we have new energy, there's a new project, everybody's already forgotten about all that other stuff, and we make the same mistake over again. We underestimate the complexity of the issue. So basically what I'm trying to say to you in this video is that when it comes to time, localization, these sort of things, these are the sort of problems that to a novice or somebody with not that much experience working with this seems very easy. But trust me, from somebody who really knows what it means to, let's not even talk about maintainability and maintaining this and like all of the other stuff. I can make an entire video just talking about the problems that you will face when you deal with this sort of thing. Just trust me when I say, at the very least, make sure that you are overestimating how long this is going to take, because you will have oversights in your estimation of this problem. If you think localization and time and stuff of that nature is easy, then you haven't been through the ordeal of trying to manage a system that needs to support all time zones and all countries. Trust me, it is a lot of work. I would say that the 2 biggest things that a company can face from going from a very small scale to a large scale, and these are not likely decisions. Be very careful when you think about doing something like this. The first thing is localization. If you are supporting multiple languages, that's probably one of the biggest impacts to your business without you even realizing how much of an impact it actually is. The second thing is theming, allowing users to have a content management system type of thing going, where they can theme different pages in different styles and so forth. These 2 things are, I'm not going to say that they're bad ideas. I'm just going to say that they require a lot of attention, and they are going to require a lot of maintenance long term. So make sure that you think about these things when you're sitting in that room estimating how long it's going to take.